Come June 21, it will be decision day for the people of Ekiti. 18 candidates are gunning for one seat.
I am the next governor of Ekiti.
But the people will have the final say.
I know that tolerance has a very big place.
Join extensive coverage of the election and get up to the many details as development unfolds.
I'm the voice of the Ekiti people.
With expert analysis from the best political team on television.
And that's honesty of island. Without
Join us all day June 21 to find out who emerges the next governor of Ekiti State.
We have agreed to move this state forward.
Keep a date with us on Court TV News. You can also watch us live on our website on www.courttvnews.com, a 24-hour news station.
Glad to have you back. It's a bright, brilliant, beautiful Saturday afternoon we have in Lagos. It's a brighter and more exciting mood, I believe, in Ekiti State because the people are excited to exercise their franchise. This is where we get to see power returning to the people again as it's defined by Abraham Lincoln. A democracy, a government of the people, for the people, and of course by the people. Ekiti State, the map right there staring you in the face on the screen, with 16 local government areas, a state that was created in 1996, and of course between that time and 1999 we had two military administrators just before 1999 when Adeniyi Adebayo became the very first civilian governor of that state, and that took us all the way to 2003 where we had one of the contenders, now a candidate of the People's Democratic Party, who became the governor in 2003. That flight did not land well. It crashed in 2006, sometimes in October 16, after it was impeached by the State House of Assembly, and that brought the speaker as the interim governor just before the federal government declared that illegal. And you know what happened. It was state of emergency in Ekiti State, and we had a military administrator by the name General Tunji Olure. That was between 19 October 2006, and that spanned across all the way to 27 April 2007. Right after that, there was an acting governor, Chief Tokwe Ademiluyi. That was between 27 April 2007 to 29 May 2007. Now, it's becoming more familiar now because it was 2007 that we first heard about the incumbent governor in Ekiti contesting with Segun Oni. That election, Segun Oni came out tops, and he was appointed. He was, of course, the governor of Ekiti State until the Court of Appeal called him back. There was a rerun election in 2009, and all of that came up with a lot of drama. You remember the state electoral commissioner at that particular time, the woman they called Ayoka, who said that her conscience wouldn't allow her to read out a doctored result way back in 2009. Of course, that eventually became the results that she read, and Fayemi went back to court, and in 2009 he won back that mandate. That's where we are today, and that is all the drama that has led to this particular point in time. June 21, 2014 is a day that Ekiti people are really excited about. 16 local government areas, and you have the capitals there. Ikole looks quite big on this map, but it's not as big in figures with the Ado State, which is the state capital. Many believe that particular place had about 30% of the registered votes. Initially, the figures was a little bit over 700,000, but INEC told us yesterday that close to 233,000 of those people did not have their permanent voters card. So we're looking at about 400,000 registered voters in this election. These are the federal constituencies: Ekiti North 1 and 2, Ekiti Central 1 and 2, and of course Ekiti South 1 and 2. Away from there is the senatorial district, and you know which party is in place in all of these districts. Ekiti North senatorial district, of course, Central and South. Away from there is the number of registration areas. What's in Ekiti? There are 177 of them. Now, this, of course, shows you the breakdown of those wards. You have Oye Ekiti, which is the local government of the incumbent governor. And Oye is also in the eyes of a lot of people because you'll recall I told you earlier about what happened when the federal university came to Oye Ekiti, and the incumbent governor insisted that it must be in Ikole. As we speak now, two faculties of that university is now in Ikole, and many are saying that that decision will also impact on the elections results that would come from those two local governments side by side. They have they share 12 wards. So we have 12 wards in Oye and of course 12 in Ikole. Now, only time will tell to decide how all this arithmetic will yield and what it will impact on the result. Of course, as we speak now, no times for campaigns, no time for rallies. It's a question of who is most popular with the people in Ekiti and who really do the Ekiti people want, who they desire to lead them as a governor in the next 4 years. Now, the number of valid registered voters, I told you earlier, 732,166. That has been cut down now because if you do not have a permanent voter's card in Ekiti, in fact, Annex said you should have no business coming near the polling unit. So we're looking at a figure close to 400,000. Well, in the last election, not quite, we've not really had an election where the total number of votes cast match up with the total number of registered voters. And there have been opinions as well as regards the militarization of election in Ekiti. You recall 12,000 policemen and overwhelming number of members of the NSCDC as well as soldiers alongside. All of this is an addition to the already established policemen in different local governments in Ekiti State, and many have said that that might impact on the response of people to the election. But of course, we had our correspondent who called earlier from Igi, and he said, Abiola Oluwole said that it was a massive response from the people who came out all out defiling the odds. Breakdown of the valid registered voters. I told you earlier about Ado Ekiti, just right there at the bottom, 134,141. Many have said that that a particular local government, that particular metropolitan city will tell a lot about who wins the election. About 30% of electorates live there, and the winner stands a good chance of winning. But the major contenders, the APC candidate, PDP, as well as Labour Party, all are expected to share the votes in that area, followed by, though we have a record Dun and a fellow Dun with 54,430 votes, and we heard earlier that the candidate of the Labour Party already voted alongside the first civilian governor of Ekiti State, Adeniyi Adebayo, and they both affirmed the fact that the elections there went smoothly and that it was peaceful. Now we're looking across all of that. You see Kere there, 45,747, and where is it now? The list would be, if I can pick it now, is Ileje Meje with 11,796 registered votes. Number of registered voters across the senatorial districts, you see 190,628 for Ekiti North Senatorial District, and this is where the bulk of the votes would be. Ekiti Central Senatorial District and of course Ekiti South Senatorial District having 239,782 votes. Now that's another interesting distribution of the voter population. 51% of registered voters in Ekiti are female, and leaving the rest to the male. And many have asked the question of how this will impact on how people will respond and come out en masse to vote. Now, if you think about this in the lines of women participation in politics and electoral processes in Nigeria, you might want to say that not quite a number of people will come out. But from the feats we've seen so far, we've actually seen more women on the lines, more women on the queues than men. It looks like indeed Ekiti people are living up to the expectation and of course to what is believed to be called the fountain of knowledge, and one state that has indeed produced the highest number of professors in Nigeria. Number of polling units in Ekiti today is 2,195, and this one talks about the breakdown of the voting points. Ikole has 200, Oye has 195. Now look at Ado, it's 455, and all eyes on Ado Ekiti today. Now let me take you a little bit back to Ado. Now Ado Ekiti is the state capital of this particular state, and what it means is that the All Progressive Congress is counting on its developmental strides in that state. As a matter of fact, the PDP candidate is saying that I am the mother of civilization in Ado. Ayofashe said, I actually built the first dualized road in that state. So I'm the architect of modernization in Ado Ekiti. And of course, the Labour Party candidate too, as a member of the House of Representatives, is saying, I am as well popular with the people of Ado, and I have done quite a number of things for them to vote for me. Now, how all of this will turn out, only time will tell as we begin to count down to the end of today to find out who eventually, out of the 18 contenders, win the governorship election in Ekiti. Now, these are the 18 parties and their candidates. 18 parties contesting election, but it looks as if only 4 of them, as you can see from the picture behind me, are more media friendly, if I can put it that way. This is the age distribution and qualification. Of course, they looked quite red. BSc, PhD, that's John Luke how they fire me, and that's quite amazing. SSC, that's the candidate of AA, Okpeyemi Folayemi Akinyemi. Well, that's not too far from what is expected from as agreed by the Constitution, and I understand that that also will play a large role in how the people choose and decide today. Away from that now, we have the major contenders. From the left side is a big smile from the ex-governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose. He believes that he's a grassroots man, and he has said at different fora that he has what it takes to come back as the governor of Ekiti. Now, you recall that he was impeached in 2006, and that is Kole Ajayi. He is the candidate of a court party. He looks quite like a newcomer into all of this, but he said categorically that I am the voice of Ekiti. And this is Kyle Defayemi, the incubator there. Many have called him the perfect gentleman. He's a candidate of the All Progressives Congress, and just next to him is the candidate of the Labour Party, who prior to this time used to be a member of the All Progressives Congress and also now contending for the biggest and the major seat in Ekiti politics. Now, who wins out of all of these? Only time will tell. And how critical who wins is to these major political parties, many also will analyze. As the PDP finds its way to reclaim the Southwest, the APC wants to affirm that he is in charge of that region of the country to boost its chances for the general election in 2015. And Labour Party is also looking forward to have a second state, because Ondo State, as we speak now, is being led by that party. This is the local government areas of the major contenders. You see Oye there, which happens to be the local government area or from the incumbent that Dr. Kyle Defayemi is from Isha, as well as candidates of the Labour Party and PDP, or both of them from Irepodun, Ifelodun, and of course Ado Ekiti has the Accord candidate. Now, this number of state assembly constituencies, there are 26 of these, and if you take a look at everything, it's APC all the way, it's the Broom Revolution all the way, except for Omo Ekiti East, which has PDP there. Now, many have said that we cannot rely on the statistics to decide who wins the election. Just wait for a moment and you will find out. Number of state assembly constituencies, it's 26, APC has 25, and PDP 1. Number of police officers deployed. That's another interesting part of this much talked about election, what many have called the militarization of electoral process, especially in Ekiti State. 12,000 policemen, thousands of members of the NSCDC, of course, not to mention soldiers. You saw the helicopters, you saw the machinery, you saw the bomb detector machines, you saw the horses and the sniffer dogs, and it looks as if the federal government and indeed the Nigerian military means business in Ekiti. Number of accredited observers, domestic and international, it's 29. As a matter of fact, the United States of America says it is, well, so much interested in the outcome of the elections in Ekiti because it will no doubt impact on the next one in Osun and ultimately on the general election in 2015. We all can only hope that all the stakeholders, the INEC, who happens to be the umpire, and of course will give a level playing ground to all political parties participating in this election. Now, this is a list of the accredited observers, and you have the name of the organization and their leaders there. And that's it. As we find out who and what happens in Ekiti in a couple of hours, I'm joined now by a very profound public affairs analyst. Join me in the studio at this time. Steve, are you ready? Thank you, Steve, for finding time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What's the mood like for you personally? Elections in Ekiti and all eyes on Ekiti. How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting development. Ekiti has always been very volatile, you know, when it comes to politics. But for this particular election, it's the more interesting because this is like the prelude to 2015. Okay. You know, Ekiti will probably most determine in terms of attention and media focus and reactions from political parties what happens in Osun in August, and then what ultimately happens, you know, at the national level in 2015. So people are concerned to see how the parties will perform. I'm talking essentially about the leading parties, the PDP, the AP, the APC, and to an extent, maybe the Labour Party. So how the parties will perform in Ekiti is key to determining their strength. And then the efficacy of INEC itself. Jega is there, you know, the security apparatus will also be evaluated, you know, and how, you know, the president as an individual and of course the federal government as a body, you know, will accept or will be seen to be playing a non-intrusive role in what happens in Ekiti. So Ekiti becomes, you know, for analysts, for everybody really, you know, a window into determining what we should expect in Osun and ultimately in February next year when the elections will be conducted. So it is an important election, you know, beyond who emerges as the governor. It is important to test our readiness as far as INEC is concerned and as far as even people will respond, you know, to the election itself. Let me quickly say, for example, the revelation from INEC that almost about 35% of registered voters won't be voting, you know, today because they didn't collect, you know, the permanent voters card. That's an indication of what might happen in Osun and what might also happen ultimately. But then it's good that at least they are test running, you know, the template now in Ekiti, so that people will probably say, oh, for Osun, we shouldn't allow this to happen. And then on the national scale, let people be prepared. Those who took the time to go and register should also, you know, be burdened enough to go and collect their permanent voters register and come out on election day. So that is an, you know, essential component of what people will be looking at, you know, so that if Ekiti gets it right, then it becomes, you know, a template, you know, for the performance that we will see in Osun and ultimately at the national level in February.
Given the pockets of violence that preceded the election, many were thinking that it was going to be a free-for-all come June 21, 2014. But from the feedbacks we've gotten from our correspondents, it looks as if there's a massive response from the people and it's been peaceful relatively thus far.
I agree with you that it's been peaceful. Maybe we should attribute that to the fact that, you know, from a jocular point of view, that all the soldiers and police people have left Borno and Sambisa and they are now in Ekiti State, you know. So that's quite interesting because if we could afford to send so many security personnel, you know, to a state that has less than 1 million voters, now we know that it will just be about 400,000. Shouldn't it be interesting that we are still struggling to find, you know, 200 and something girls, you know, in a particular state in Nigeria, you know, but that's, as I said, is a jocular thing. But of course, it's noteworthy that the election has, you know, been relatively peaceful. I heard, you know, almost all the candidates are attesting to the fact that, you know, things have gone fairly smoothly, and that should be expected, you know. The drumbeat of war, to me, was probably part of, you know, the strategy, you know, from all the sides, you know, to draw attention of the media, to draw attention of the observers, you know, to look closely, to say don't, you know, take your eyes off the ball, you know, just in case somebody wants to sneak something in. So, but we shouldn't relax, you know, just yet. Usually from elections like this, apart from the pre-election, you know, skirmishes, violence, etc., the areas to watch out for will be when the votes are moving, you know, from wards, you know, to a particular location. I'm sure Ekiti people will be watchful of potential hijacks of ballot boxes. And then by the time, you know, the votes will be counted, you know, and announced in Ado. Remember what happened in 2009, you know, during the
rerun election.
Absolutely, you know, and people shouting and, you know, people raising their voices and everything. We should also watch out for that. But it's been good so far, you know, that people are not, we've not had any cases of ballot snatching, of multiple thumb printing, etc. You know, how that will work out, you know, will come down essentially to the science of it. You know, now we know that a certain number of people, you know, are not eligible to vote because they didn't collect their permanent voters register. So whoever will attempt to do anything must bear in mind that everything must tally with the number of people that, you know, came out to check their votes and eventually voted against the remaining 400 and something thousand, you know, eligible voters. That is important. That is key. That is essential. And that's what we should watch out for, you know.
Except for those issues that led to today, 21st of June, of course, you heard about the APC governors that could not fly in for the mega APC rally. Then in the early hours of today, too, there were information that the Director General of the Fire Me Campaign Organization, as well as the Commissioner of Finance, were nabbed by military men and all of that. There's been a lot of the opposition. The APC particularly has been crying foul as regards this election.
Well, I mean, I'm able to say that of all the parties, APC, in my opinion, will appear to be the most media savvy, you know, to use that word. Apart from the campaigns and a few interviews here and there, Fauci, you know, hasn't said so much. And neither as, you know, MOB, Kwame Bamidele. But APC...
What does that portend?
Two things. One will be that maybe they don't think that the media could swing votes or that public perception or public opinion, you know, matters that much. So you sense a kind of disdain or non-enthusiasm, you know, for media focus. That's on the one side. On the other side will be that maybe there's another game plan, you know, that does not necessarily rely so much on the media power, on the power of the populace, you know. But of course, that's just a bit of suspicion. Why that will be so, I do not know. But then for the other party that has always relied on, or that has at least, you know, acted, you know, in the manner that shows that I'm ready to open my books, I'm ready to let people, you know, see what I'm doing. I'm talking in terms of APC. You may want to assess how has this worked for them, you know, in previous elections. Because if it has not worked for them, maybe they wouldn't be using that same style, you know, to say that we are for the media, we are for the people, we are always ready to open up, you know. I think that's essential.
We have comments now coming on the Facebook page. This is from John Camus, all the way from Kogi. I believe INEC should make use of the police helicopters to ferry voting materials to rural and obscure areas on time, instead of sitting idle and claiming to be supporting security. They should help make this election a success. Thank you, John Camus from Kogi. Of course, you can also leave your comments on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Core TV News. And you can also do that on our Twitter handle at Core TV News NG. As well as on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Core TV, leave a space, and Core TV, leave a space, and news. Now, back to you. What do you think is the rallying point for... Now, some have referred to one major challenge in the Nigerian politics to be the politics of desperation. Do you see any sign of desperation from any of these big contenders as regards Ekiti State?
Well, desperation in itself shouldn't be negative. If you're not, you can't desire being a governor, that much if you're not seen to be fairly desperate, But when desperation gets to a point where it becomes, to use that word loosely, a question of, do or die, then that will be very negative. And I think so far, in my opinion, it would look to me as though that the idea of the party that appears desperate, would be the PDP, the ruling party at the federal. And I say that with every sense of responsibility, particularly because at the last major rally, by the PDP candidate, in which you had the vice president and the president, we heard the president of Nigeria saying that he wouldn't be that inclined to want to develop Ekiti until the PDP candidate, assumed governorship. I thought that was as unguarded as it was unpresidential, because, frankly speaking, you're not. Yes, he was there as Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, but Dr. Goodluck Jonathan happens to be the president of Nigeria, and those who won't vote in this election are much more than those who will vote for any of the parties. Should we therefore accept that what the president said, that the majority of the people who are non-aligned, who are not into politics, who are not going to vote, should suffer, on the development on account of what the president said, because there is the slim possibility that the candidate of the president might not win. I think really that the question should be that the president should apologize to the people of Ekiti. But again, maybe that would be taking it, too far. So I sense desperation in what the president said. If Adele Fayose fails to win, does it mean that the Ekiti people should not expect their due from the federal government? That's wrong. So you see a tinge of desperation there, which shouldn't be in any case, because at the end of the day, what obtains in civilized nations is that people close ranks so that the populace can benefit from democracy, so that the state or the country at large can develop. So desperation shouldn't be to the point of denying people what rightly belongs to them, because your candidate, is not going to win.
We have some sort of anathema here. The ruling party at the federal level happens to be the opposition in Ekiti. Now, a win or lose for either PDP or APC, what do you think portends for politics in Nigeria and, of course, the 2015 election?
In other words, you are saying that if either Labour or Accord or any of the smaller parties, wins by tomorrow morning, what happens? I think that would further open up, the political landscape. However, I do not see that happening for reasons that appear to be obvious to me. But in the unlikely events that happens, I think we will have another Ondo state, on our hands, even though Ondo is rather peculiar. Labour in nature, but of course in character, you could guess that, it aligns with a particular, political party. But of course, it will be interesting, because we're not a two-party state yet, even though two-party dominate. So if you have a Labour or an Accord or a PPA or something wins, I think that will, be a fresh, intriguing, interesting development.
So you don't believe that will happen? Let's narrow it down to PDP and APC.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think those are the frontliners, frankly speaking. I'm aware that the candidate of the Labour Party, barely 48 hours, almost 24 hours to election, was actually going to, step down for one of the, two popular candidates, but of course declined, at the last minute. So we have 3 people running, but of course he will be the third in terms of, popularity and relevance and potential vote. So for me, it's between the incumbent governor, Fayemi, and the main challenger, Fayose. And of course, from the analysis that you did earlier, if you look at the political structure on the ground, and the likelihood of voters, how things might turn out to be. Look at, you know, the zones for the state assembly. Out of 25, or was it 26? 25 APC and only one.
Just a minute. We have one of our correspondents, Frank Omolape. Hello, Frank. Are you there?
Yes, exactly.
Frank, where exactly are you now?
Okay, right now I'm still in Ishon, the hometown of the governor of Kayode Fayemi, the sitting governor. And of course, voting has just ended. As I'm talking to you right now.
You mean voting? You mean voting has ended 5 minutes before 3?
Yes, voting ended at about 10 minutes to the hour or 2 o'clock local time here. And
10 minutes before what?
INEC officials are in the process of sorting, of course, the result of the voting here right now. And that's exactly what is taking place right now.
Just a minute, Frank. Just a minute, Frank. Let me get. Hello, Frank. Are you there?
The APC, the All Progressive Congress, seems to be polling higher, looking at the results, sorting out, because most of the cards and some of the results here we are seeing is that APC is polling higher than other parties here, such as Labour Party, PDP, and some other parties here.
It's okay, Frank. Hello, Frank. Can you hear me, Frank?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I just want to confirm the exact time you said the voting ended in Ishon.
I can't hear you properly, but then if I can, of course, with the situation of things here, it's very calm. The atmosphere is calm. There was no result of a casualty as I'm talking to you now.
Okay.
The people seem quite satisfied with the process, with the entire process of election here. So the people are actually waiting for the final result here before they can take the ballot box to the Central Coalition Center. But right now, like I said earlier, it is the sorting process that is ongoing right now. And the APC seems to be polling higher than any other party in this very ward. And it's called Ward 11. At the polling unit is 009 in Ogilulu Street here in Isho, Ekiti, the hometown of the sitting governor, Kayode Fayemi.
It's all right, Frank. Can you hear me? Hello, Frank. Can you hear me, Frank?
I can barely hear you.
It's all right. Just keep us up to date with issues as it arise. As soon as you can confirm those digits, we'll love to hear from you. Thank you so very much.
Hear you.
I understand. Thank you very much for your contribution, Frank. I mean, you had that. Peaceful, and then as we speak right now, he said that they are already counting.
Yeah.
What does that portend for our electoral processes in Nigeria?
I know what the INEC guidelines say is that once the officers agree with the agents at any particular polling unit, that there are no more voters, even though they are obliged to wait till 3 p.m., the statutory, time for them to round up. But once it becomes obvious that all the votes...
Okay, we have Pius. Hello, Pius.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Lagos.
Pius, where are you now?
I'm still at Afao, where the voting is still going on. And things are unfolding right here as I'm talking to you. That's what I want to give you an update about.
Please go ahead.
Yes, at exactly 2:20, the PDP gubernatorial candidate, talking about Mr. Ayo Fayose, voted.
Okay.
And right now, there are situations reports because, like, in 2-3 minutes ago, for 2-3 minutes ago now, the whole place has been rowdy. And just all of a sudden, I just saw a truck of military guys in military uniform and all that. They just came and pointed at somebody and they just took the guy away, and the whole place is rowdy and people are just
Pius, could you identify the person that was picked away or his political affiliation?
Well, like I said earlier on, we've been working with the guy since yesterday. He appears to me to be a journalist. But right now, I'm still trying to confirm which medium he's actually reporting for. He's actually a photojournalist. And for the past 10, 15 minutes, he has been whisked away by these military guys. And up to this point that I'm talking to you, he has not been brought back here or for him to come on his own and all that. So we're just here waiting to see what will really unfold, any moment from now. That's the security report I have here based on the voting that is actually going on right here at St. David Primary School in Afao, where Fayose actually voted.
Okay, did you have a words with the PDP candidate after he voted?
Yes, after voting, he actually lamented the situation on ground. He was actually beaten because there are to me unconfirmed reports, saying some people were arrested in town distributing money, to voters, asking them to vote a particular party. He frowned at it so seriously, and he also frowned at the violence. He claimed that the whole thing, is being characterized by violence, that he's not happy about it.
Could you confirm where he was referring to as regards violence? Because as we speak now, we've not really had any report of violence. Which area was Fayose referring to?
Yeah, I think he was actually referring to the fact that money was being distributed to voters at various polling units.
Okay.
And as far as Nigeria is concerned, when it comes to the issue of money, people might actually be scrambling to actually, get a cash into their pocket. Probably that actually caused rowdiness and all that. And he was actually saying that after giving, before the money will be released to any prospective voter, you will be given a phone to snap exactly the party you voted for and all that. As far as I'm concerned, it's still an unconfirmed report. But as things unfold, we'll keep our eyes on the ground and make sure that we get details. Probably I'll have to speak to the police public relations officer who has been trying his number but is not picking up. I hope he will any moment from now, and then I'll give you an update to confirm if all of this arrests that we've been hearing since morning and all of these allegations are actually true.
But what's the security situation like now where you are in Afao after the supposed journalist was whisked away?
Yeah, the atmosphere is relatively calm. Everybody is just, seated, and some people are actually hanging out to see what is going to happen next. Nobody can really predict what's going to happen next. But generally, Afao has been very, 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 very peaceful. Very, very peaceful. I visited close to 10 to 12 polling units where everything was going on smoothly. After 12:30, exactly 12:30, the voting commenced, at most of the polling units I actually visited. So generally, security-wise, Afao is very, very peaceful. Apart from the incident that happened yesterday, where the DG of the incumbent governor was actually attacked, in the night by security personnel, according to what Mr. Taramola told journalists this morning.
Okay.
Aside that, security situation has been very, very calm in Afao generally.
When exactly did elections start where you are?
The election started at 12, voting started at 12:30 p.m.
Okay.
That was the stipulated time that INEC actually gave here that voting was actually going to commence, and it did commence at 12:30 p.m. on the dot.
It's all right. Thank you very much, Pius Samuel. We'll love to hear from you as soon as you have updates on those events and news as they unfold. Thank you very much, Pius.
It's my pleasure. I'll be so glad to keep you posted.
All right, you heard him.
Yes.
Let's start with the idea that police investigation in Nigeria starts with an outright arrest. And he said he saw someone.
And he's a journalist.
And he said
that was picked.
that was picked. Does it not follow suit with what people are saying as regards the disadvantage of having a militarized election in court?
It's always a disadvantage. And I should know because in 2009, during the rerun election, the Dose Debeku, I had the privilege of being the editor of Punch.
Okay.
And part of what Punch did, much more than any other newspaper in Nigeria, was to send a battalion, in quotes, of journalists and photojournalists to Ekiti. Every senatorial zone, had about 3 to 4, journalists and photojournalists, monitoring everywhere and everything. And our journalists were attacked. Some picked by, military personnel who gave the orders, you might want to investigate because the military, soldiers or policemen work for, isn't it, the federal government. So who will have given such an order, directly or indirectly? So it's always an issue because really, in terms of the sanctity of the electoral process, it rests with INEC. Has INEC complained of anything? Have we seen anybody trying to hijack, anything? Why would a journalist be picked, from a polling station? It's like picking an observer who is not voting, who has been accredited to observe the election. It's like picking him. And the gentleman that your reporter, spoke about, from what we have read so far, won't be the first person. I've read online, shortly before, I came on here, about 4 journalists being picked specifically by security people, 2 of them from Osho or something, and they actually saw them, to the border, between Ekiti and Osho State and said, you are not needed here. Go back to Osho State. Those are journalists who are accreditation papers from INEC. Once you have that paper from INEC and you have they are invariably saying that it is not sufficient to have your accredited badge as a journalist. What could a journalist do? Swing votes, thumbprint, or what? So to answer your question, it is uncivilized, it is needless, and it exposes us in a rather uncomplimentary manner, if security people have to be seen, carrying out orders, and the thing about security people, yes, maybe there'll be a suggestion of this is how we don't want such people, we don't want this type of people, at the polling vote. But then they carry it out in a manner that Fela described as, zombie mentality. That is poor. That is unwelcomed. Really.
Well, funny enough, a guest analyst already earlier in the morning used that same expression.
Which one?
Zombie expression. Now, you heard him talk about the PDP candidate who complained bitterly about distributing money. Yeah. During the electoral campaigns, we've had stakeholders say if they give you money, collect it because it's your money. Yeah. But do not vote because of the money, vote for your conscience. But now we have a situation whereby you have to snap what you vote to validate the money you collect. How does that impact on the quality of election?
I will take that allegation by the PDP candidate with a pinch of salt. Because what he was reported to have said, if you compare it to the general analysis from your reporter, you will see that there's been a kind of atmosphere of peace, of tranquility, and of order. Okay, so when you put the question to him that the candidate of PDP alleged on violence, and you followed up on that question, he said he didn't witness any violence, but the candidate alleged and the violence, and what he termed violence was the money inducement that only him or people reported to him saw. We should be happy at this stage in our national life that citizen journalism is everywhere. And therefore, there is a bit of confidence in what's going on. Because, frankly, let's say in a place like Ado or Ifon or Ikole, which are, to an extent, very cosmopolitan, it is unlikely that any policeman will stop even those who are waiting on the queue, to take pictures of the polling booth or something. And as you are taking, it's going viral. On Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere. So I do not suppose that it is as guarded, as secretive in terms of the atmosphere, you know, as a candidate will have us believe. So if there is evidence that people are being induced, and you know, inducement, you know, are in categories. Some are within what, you know, frankly, INEC or anybody can do anything about. If people leave their homes and they've already collected any amount of money just to go and vote for anybody, how do you prove that? How do you stop them, you know, from fulfilling, you know, the deal, the bargain, the end of the bargain? And in any case, what sort of a candidate will worry so much about his supporters being bought over at the polling booths? How much are you going to be given? You know, will the amount of money that will be given to them at the polling booth be more important to them than the bags of rice that they have collected earlier on? I mean, I you know, so we will wait to see such evidence.
But Steve, you agree with me that given if you study our electoral history in Nigeria, the idea of giving money to electorates is not strange.
At all.
But then that brings us to what has happened thus far to all the electoral education, you know, that we've had, that will not sell your votes, especially in a place like Ekiti, where there is this euphoria that they are well educated, they are highly enlightened. Put all of that together. What are your thoughts along that line?
Oh, there are. I mean, undoubtedly, there are major challenges in terms of our values, generally as a people. You know, it's an endemically corrupt nation. You know, people will do anything just to gain an edge, you know, illegally and in a corrupt manner. So it's not strange that this will happen, you know, in an election. But then, is it sufficient to buy people's conscience? I doubt it. And what other parties that I know will say is that if they offer you money, collect it, but vote, you know, along your conscience. And I think, you know, morally speaking, that's about the best thing that you can do. Voter education essentially is to encourage you to vote wisely. You know, maybe there are issues in terms of ideological, you know, positioning of all the papers. What, as Fayemi said, candidly, that is different from what Fayoshe would have said, or Okweme Bamdele. So we know ab initio that in terms of ideological positioning, there isn't so much difference between APC and PDP and Labour. Everybody's talking about welfareism, everybody's talking about free education, everybody's talking about building roads and repairing roads. They are not major, they are not fundamental. They are only trying to address, you know, the stomach needs, you know, of the electorate. Unfortunately, that is the level where we are in terms of the growth of our economy. But then, will a 3,000 today, or a mini bag of rice, or a 10,000, you know, be sufficient to swing anybody's vote if indeed, you know, that voter already has a position? I doubt it. So it will look to me like the bunch of people that we have are those who are easily, you know, swayed, you know, by persuasions or by gratifications. That would be unfortunate, but what can we do about it? So it shouldn't be about somebody complaining now, because maybe 30 minutes or an hour later, other parties will come up with other allegations, you know, that will put, you know, this very, very candidate.
It looks like thus far we're witnessing a relatively peaceful election against all odds, considering the pockets of violence that preceded June 21. But if this election ends up like this, peaceful, in court, I'm looking at the possibility of ascribing all the praise to the heavy military presence in Ekiti. How does that impact on subsequent elections in Nigeria?
Well, you know, Ekiti is just a state, and we know, you know, quite well that Nigeria is under policed, Nigeria is under secure. So maybe it might work for Ekiti, because you've got people coming from all the other states to come to the small Ekiti.
But we not have that level of surveillance.
It might also work in Osun. But then when we are now having a general election, what do you do? You know, that would be the litmus test, you know, for the whoever is the IG at that point. So it shouldn't be, we should never, you know, encourage a situation where we have to rely on heavy presence of the military or security apparatus. No, it should be about getting the process, you know.
We have the caller. We have the caller. What point you look on today? Calling from Kano.
Go on.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to know. Yeah, I want to know what is happening at the local government and the local where the incumbent governor. What is happening about the election there?
Where the incumbent got the cast a report and from Ekiti. It's been peaceful thus far. As a matter of fact, we got that call 5 minutes before 3, and he said that elections were already concluded. And as at the time he called us, he told us that votes are being sorted out and that countings were already ongoing. He also said that it looks as if the incumbent party there was having an upper hand. We cannot confirm that at this moment, except we have a confirmation from INEC. So if that's what you're saying, Prince, of course, that's what we have for you for now, and we hope that we'll bring you updates subsequently as we get calls from our correspondents on the field. Steve, we were talking about the militarization of election and how bad it will get if we rely so much on
that
military paraphernalia, and then come general election, we don't have the might again.
Exactly.
But beyond that, prior to this time, there's been a lot about educating the people as regards exercising their franchise, as regards peaceful coordination during elections. Would you say that the government is doing enough in that regard, especially now the political parties involved? Because in the seasons that led up to this time, what we have seen has been people talking about personalities, counter criticism, not much of public awareness and public education from the political parties involved in the election.
Right. Yeah. Well, for the size of a country like Nigeria, you will have to do a lot more than the ordinary, before the effect of the kind of sensitization that is actually necessary, will be felt. I'm aware that INEC has tried, in terms of sensitization. I'm aware that they have broken down, their lines of deliverables in terms of, who are the targets and what sort of message should go, to them, to political parties, to electorates, to the media, to political editors and journalists. I'm aware that INEC is trying its best. But again, as I said, it's a huge country, and therefore it might look as if they are not doing
Steve,
enough.
it looks like we have a call from... It's all right. We're going to take that call later. Just keep trying. We'd love to hear from you. Now, Steve, let's move away from there a little bit and talk about... might be too early to judge or to praise INEC, but if we compare this to what we saw in Anambra, in Edo, in Ondo, where accreditation could not start until about 12 o'clock.
Correct.
We had logistics problem, voting materials did not arrive early and all of that. There was an helicopter delay somewhere. It looks as if there's been an improvement.
Obviously so. I think INEC, obviously has learnt its lessons. And I think that they have tried to put in measures. And we can hear from what, the candidate of the APC, the incumbent governor, has said, focusing on Ishan, his own area, of locality that, has been impressed so far. And frankly, as far as INEC is concerned, we have not heard anything, untoward, about their performance. I hope it continues like that, because the counting and the collation are as important as the voting themselves, So we are looking at one part of a series, Remember, you mentioned Madam Ayoka, in 2009. Yes, voting went fairly well, skirmishes here and there, shooting here and there, until it got to the point of, collating the results.
And
exactly.
of course, declaring the results.
Absolutely, because people will say, you will have to be transparent, when it gets to that process, it will have to tally. As I said earlier, 700 and something thousand people registered. Only about 400,000 people are expected, are eligible to vote. Do we have, INEC will have to tell us if we have up to that amount.
Okay.
Bear in mind that if we have 1 or 2 persons more than those that are expected or supposed to vote, there is a problem.
Okay.
By the time they are collating the results from APC, from PDP, from Labour, and from the pockets of hundreds or few thousand that we will have from all the other parties, everything must tally. If there is a reduction or an addition to the expected figure, then INEC will have, questions, jamming questions to answer. So far so good in terms of the voting process. But then in terms of, because they're actually, required to announce at every polling unit, and that there are agents, representatives of all the political parties at every, polling, booth, to verify, to count. So at what point things will go wrong, people will be watchful.
Jeffrey Hawkins, the U.S. Consular General, said that the Nigerian electoral process is as good as Nigerians make it. And, we've had politicians and stakeholders say, do not only vote, but ensure that your vote counts.
Yeah.
And just like you established earlier,
Absolutely.
It looks like this period of time is even more important than the voting
Absolutely.
itself. But the big question is, how do people protect their votes?
Well, I won't use the word, the expression protect your vote. I do not know what it means. When politicians use it, it carries the connotation of watchful agitation, in my opinion. You use the right word. Vote, but make your vote count. In other words, if you are there and at the end of the polling, they announce the total, then do the simple arithmetics. Agree with all the polling agents yourself. Wait for the votes to be counted and announce that if in polling booth 13 ward so 100 people voted, then let the arithmetics of what APC, PDP, and all the other people got tally with the 100 that voted. If that didn't happen, then the election will have been failing. You will not have allowed your vote to count, from that process, which is quite different, in the sense of it, when you compare that to protecting your vote. How you protect your vote, I do not know. It is the duty of the government, of INEC, and of the the government really to protect the voting process.
It's right.
So
it's 25 minutes gone past 3 o'clock from our studios here. Court TV News live from Lagos, and this is where we get to monitor what transpires in Ekiti. In case you don't know, and of course I believe you should know, except you are not in Nigeria, elections are taking place. Gubernatorial election is taking place in Ekiti. We had a call earlier from our correspondent in Afao, Pao Samuel, and Afao is the hometown of the PDP candidate Ayodele Fayose, and he says that everything appears peaceful relatively thus far, except for a particular time that caused uproar when a supposed journalist was whisked away by men of the Nigerian army. We hope to reach him back to give us details as regards what happened. And he said that the PDP candidate also admitted allegations that certain parties have been distributing money to voters. I think we have a call now. Hello, Ghana. How are you today? Hello, Ghana. How are you today?
Okay, my question is this. I'm away from Kwara State. How do we have this station in my state? I'm not interested in the election or not election. But this particular station, how do we have it in Kwara State?
Okay, how do you get this station in Kwara? Of course, we're trending. It's channel 329 on Star Times. And I'm sure that if you have a Star Times decoder, you can get us live from on Star Times channel 329.
Okay, you say you are not calling into the program.
It's all right. Thank you, Ghana. We'd love to hear more from you. Now, we also heard from Frank Omolape, who spoke to us from Ward 11 in Isha. Isha is the hometown of the incumbent governor, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. And he says that at the time he called us a few minutes before 3 that voting already ended and counting was ongoing. Now, Steve, let's do a little bit of political history. In Ekiti, there has never been an incumbent governor that got a second term. Yeah. It started with Adeni Adebayo. That was when Ayodele Fayose came in. Yeah. It didn't end there before he got impeached. And of course, you saw what happened with Shegoni and now Kayode Fayemi. Do you think that this history will have any impact on the outcome of the elections today?
I don't think so. I think Mimiko broke that jinx in Ondo. You know, the same thing was said about Ondo at a point, you know, and they listed all the, you know, the Adifarati, Agagu, you know, everybody who had been governor and who never went back for the second term. The same thing is said of, you know, about Oyo State. Most, you know, a number of states really in the south, you know, west. If it could happen in Ondo, talking in terms of, you know, how much does history, you know, how much role does it play, you know, does it impact, you know, on what happens today. If it could change in Ondo, I don't see why it can change in Oyo or in Ekiti, you know, but then we'll wait till tomorrow to know, you know, what will happen in Ekiti.
But
then,
do you consider the federal might that has come to support the PDP in Ekiti, if you compare it with what happened in Ondo? I mean, it doesn't look like there was so much federal might behind the PDP candidate. I'm not speaking categorically now, but it doesn't appear like we had the president and the vice president coming to endorse a PDP candidate in Ondo.
Maybe not directly, but again, you know, observers, you know, you know, can recall what happened.
Okay, we have Usman from Adamawa. Hello, Usman.
Hello, my name is Usman.
Please go ahead with your contribution, Usman.
Yes. From movie south, right?
It's all right.
From movie south, I get to you people through Dish, through Al Jazeera Dish, because we're getting free air Dish. The gentleman there now, I support him 100%. And now, our own comment now in this country, ANEC. I wonder why ANEC, already in Ekiti State, they have about 6 commissioners, ANEC members there. 6, what of Nigeria? And my second question is, the troops, up to 12,000 troops in Ekiti State only. Population in Ekiti State is more than 3.5, 4 million, put 4. The troops in Ekiti is weak. The members, they can vote, those people, they must vote, and I, and Quran, and refugee, and everybody there, they must vote. That's my question. Those people, they must vote or not. Or they are supporting this thing because we put our own vote on our candidate. It's not in our party, it's our own candidate. You press it, please, come on air. We are watching you people 24 hours. We are watching you in this Ekiti. So that we will see this country will progress. Thank you very much. May God bless our TV content.
Good to hear from you, Usman. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now, you heard the man there from Adamawa who is saying, oh, what about the troops in Ekiti? Possibly he's agitating that Adamawa should have more troops there. It has been focused on Ekiti. But is there anything wrong in having INEC putting that number of commissioners in Ekiti for this election?
Yeah, I mean, but he's addressing, the same thing that we said earlier, that yes, if you have to, pull all your resources together, just to make 400,000 votes, count in Ekiti. Okay, that might make sense. But then when you wouldn't have that luxury in February 2015.
Well, isn't it even better now compared to what happened
right
in Anambra, where we had all the resources as well on the particular state, and
absolutely, I agree with you.
Not coming out well.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That at least, let's see that you can get this one right, and this can serve as a template for Osun, and then ultimately, hopefully, at the federal level, maybe that's what. But of course, people will want to say, don't use, a singular example of Ekiti, which is just a microcosm of, the entire Nigeria, to validate the position of
Okay,
INEC.
Steve, I think we have another call. Hello?
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 Usman, I can hear you. Go ahead with your contribution.
From Kaduna. Please, you have to help us to tell the INEC at the end, we have to be very sincere this time around. We have to be very sincere. Because the problem from this election is from the INEC. We have to be very sincere. We have to do their work thoroughly and very sincere. That's our contribution.
It's all right. Thank you very much. Thank you for calling Usman from Kaduna. He was mentioning the problem being with INEC.
Sincerity. He hammered on the word sincerity, which is to say that, yes, candidates are saying it is peaceful, it is fair, so far it is free.
So everything now lies with the umpire.
With the umpire, what will he announce? Sincerity, be truthful,
And given the precedence of a doctored results in the past that ended up in wasting close to 3 years in court.
Absolutely.
How do you think the people should react to it? Because that brings us to the issue of getting candidates via the courts instead of via polls. How does it impact on the quality of electoral process and governance in Nigeria?
Unfortunately, it's the only way. I mean, it is disruptive. But then if you are unable to get justice, through the umpire, through the process, then you will need an arbiter, through the courts, to validate.
Okay, we have another call here. Hello, Joseph.
Hello?
Go ahead with your contribution, Joseph.
Yeah, my brother, how are you?
I'm fine, terrific.
Yeah, we as Nigerians observing your station, what is going on in it. I believe in this country we should start getting things right. In Ekiti, but if I strongly feel it is not the number of people, INEC commissioners that have been sent to Ekiti, but I believe during the general election, they will get it right. So I strongly comment.
Quite optimistic, Joseph will have say that irrespective of having one state, that he's hopeful that INEC will get it right. But isn't it too fast, too early to get INEC? But you were talking earlier about how indeed we can have, what was it we were discussing? How is it we can have a free, fair, credible election in Ekiti State? Now, there's been much talk about free, fair, and credible elections. But then we seem to focus more on the process of the election. If we can have a free, fair umpire, if the election can go smoothly. But even with a free, fair election, I think what makes it credible is the quality of decision that the people make.
At the end of the day. So that we don't have to return to the court, just like we were saying before.
Exactly.
The court, absolutely. And that rests solely on, back to what, was it Usman or the other guy, said about the sincerity of INEC. In 2009, Madam Ayoka alleged of some intrusions from outsiders. And you did mention about how impactful, will this federal might, be on the election. Even if certain things are not, directly stated, people could, misread the body language, from Abuja, and therefore be inclined to want to be seen to be pleasing, the powers that be. That could be, that could tell on the kind of credibility, that people expect, at the end of the day. But as I said, Ekiti, hopefully, and arithmetically, should be a lot easier than Anambra.
Just a minute, Steve. Hello, Mohammed.
Hello?
Mohammed, go ahead with your contribution. I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, how are you, sir?
I'm terrific. How are you too?
How are you, sir? How is the election going on today?
Well, we're following it. From what we've seen thus far, it's been relatively peaceful.
So that I'm dependent from the other part of the state to monitor it. All right, then I'm happy. I think I'm going to be here and here. Hello?
Go ahead. I can hardly hear you. Can you move away from where you are? Can you please turn down the volume of your TV set so we can get a crystal clear communication? Are you there? Please endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set anytime you're trying to call us. Now, what we have is a feedback distortion and we can hardly hear you. So when you try to call, the phone line is right there on your screen. Try to turn down the volume of your television so that we can hear you very, very well. Now, we've seen courts deciding who won elections, especially in Anambra. We saw it happen in Edo, in Ondo, and that has altered the date of election, just like we have it now, 1 year before the general election. Apart from the alteration of dates, what actual impact do you think that will have on the quality of governance and leadership in Nigeria?
Obviously, concentration, on the part of the governor, will be weak, because you do not know the outcome, of what will happen in the court. If we go by what happened in Anambra, where court, the tribunal has already validated, I don't suppose that people won't go to court, and it is their inalienable right anyway, let them go to court.
We have another call. Joseph. Hello, Joseph.
Yes, my brother.
Joseph, can you turn down the volume of your TV set?
I was talking about the INEC issue in
Hello, Joseph. Just a minute, Joseph. Can you hear me?
So, the election, I believe I can hear you.
I want you to turn down the volume of your TV set, Joseph.
They are doing perfectly well. We should commend INEC. They are doing this country proud. When they misbehave, we should complain. Today, they are doing well. We should commend them. We should not be pessimistic. When people do things right in this country, we should have to commend them so that they can do well. In the aspect of people complaining of militarization of Ekiti, it's wrong. When the general election comes up, we will not be seeing 14 governors going into one state. Everybody will be in their state campaigning. The militarization will now be scattered to every state. The reason why this is happening in Ekiti is the pressure is too much in Ekiti. So if we didn't have this number of security operatives in Ekiti, who knows what could have happened? The infiltration from other states, it could have been another problem. But we thank the security agencies for not falling, because in this country, this is why I say most of us don't know the importance of security. Even if you need 100 people to guide one citizen of this country, we should do it. We should not be scared of security. Security must be for citizens, for the life of citizens of this country. So what the security agents have done with the complaint of people who don't wish this country well, is stand their ground to say, look, we must give security in the city. And I
Thank you very much, Joseph from Abuja. It's good to hear from you. Oh, lots of commendation coming in already. For crying out loud, it's just 20 minutes before 4 o'clock. The elections, the results are not out yet. You know, one amazing thing about elections in Nigeria, unlike what we saw in the United States of America, where Mitt Romney came out about an hour after results were announced, congratulating Barack Obama and extending an olive branch. We have not seen that in this country. So do you see all this commendation turning into something else after the announcement of the results later on today?
There are no gallant losers in Nigeria, unfortunately, you know. Even when you have a situation of a landslide victory, you know, the losers will still complain, you know, of people being disenfranchised. It is surprising, you know, for me that none of the political parties so far, you know, has raised any issues out of the fact that more than a quarter of those who registered won't be voting. We do not know which party, you know, has the bulk of those, you know, 200 and something thousand people who haven't.
Amazingly, there's not been much talk about the
People
electorate.
are just talking about, oh, they picked my candidate, they picked this, they harassed me, you know, there is heavy security, etc. Yeah, but the fact that more than a quarter of those who are expected to vote won't be voting, that's such a major thing. Maybe at the end of the day, people will now say, you know, after losing, you know, will now say, oh, 200 out of the 238,000, you know, that won't be voting will have voted for me or something. But you can't be crying, you know, over spilled milk. You know, you should have raised an alarm if there is merit, you know, in the argument. But of course, who can you blame? You can't even blame INEC, because the job of INEC is to register and to ensure that one person does not register twice. So if truly more than 700,000 people, individual people have validly registered, why will more than a quarter of those people won't be interested in, you know, in going through that election? How many of such people will have left Ekiti State, you know, and redeployed or moved to other states or died or something? How many? I doubt it to be up to 10 or 20.
Hello, Rotimi. How are you today? Afternoon, Rotimi. Go ahead with your contribution.
I would like to contribute to the program because I'm a citizen of Ekiti State. I'm from Ekiti State. I decided not to go to Ekiti State because I registered over there. I was about going on Wednesday when we had a news that the governors were about to enter Ekiti State, and we have a presence of military in Ekiti State. I was there facing the rain of Arushi. I knew what happened. What led to the state of emergency in the state. So I know what would have happened if the federal might are there right now. I knew what they did that time, and I know what they are capable of doing right now. So that's why I decided not to go. Everybody in my family were begging me not to go to the state because of the training, what is going to happen there. But we are watching this on television right now, on television. We are seeing that the reverse is the case, but except the case of Muslim Obani, I don't know what he's doing. He trusted Lagos State. If you want to go to the state, to destroy the state again, we won't allow that to happen. We are enlightened. We are more enlightened than every one of them. We won't allow that to happen. The ACT is capable of handling them too, but they are enlightened people. We can easily go to court because we have lost confidence in the court situation in Nigeria. That's why the case is going to be prolonged, because we say we are not supposed to be in this situation because we are supposed to be doing election same time every other person, every other thing that are doing election. It's because of their hanky-panky and what has led to this. Now, I want to advise everybody to be calm. I know the will of God and the will of man will prevail. We are watching it, all eyes are on them. But one thing I want TV to do for us, I want you to see to the end of the case of Muslim Obani gunshot in Ekiti.
because I'm from Ekiti. That is my town. I want to know what he's doing there. He's not supposed to be there. Like the case of El in Anambra State. He was kept in house arrest for 2 days. The election was conducted in Anambra State. I don't know why they are allowing him to be roaming about the street of Ekiti with armed men harassing people on the bus. So we want you to see to the end of the thing and let us see what he's doing.
It's all right. Thank you very much for calling Rotimi. It's been a lovely time hearing from you. But you heard Joseph, who called earlier from Abuja, said that Nigerians should not be afraid of military men. And many have argued, why would we engage the Nigerian army? I mean, it's not a situation of war. We are not fighting insurgency. Military men are supposed to be there fighting international war and all of that. And now Rotimi is also asking the question, what Obanikoro is doing in Ekiti. But Obanikoro is the Minister of State of Defense. Would you see anything fetchy in his presence in Ekiti for now?
I'm sure Obanikoro will be in Ekiti as a party member. On that score, there is no law that says you can't be anywhere. The only thing that you won't do is to vote. But then, how fair, how moral, you know, is his presence as the Minister of State for Defense, you know, whose utterances seemingly, you know, have appeared to be, you know, expectedly partisan, you know, and for a minister that is directly in charge of soldiers, you know, wouldn't it be, you know, misread, you know, so to speak, that he's there to at least attempt to influence the outcome.
We have Nasiru now calling from Kaduna. Hello, Nasiru. Are you there, Nasiru?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Court TV News. How are you today?
Hello, good afternoon.
I can hear you clearly. Go ahead with your contributions, Nasiru.
Thank you very much. I've been monitoring this year program this morning. Thank you. Thank you. I said I've been following this year program this morning.
It's all right. Go ahead, Nasiru. Go ahead. I'm with you.
We should not be afraid of those military people. But on ground, to me, those military people refer to Ekiti State. They are CDC card bearers. Why should they be there in large numbers like that? And to my own perception and belief, I want to believe that Jonathan wants to show that yes, he has supporters and whatever in Ekiti. And that is a myth. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in winning. So they shouldn't use force to coerce people or maybe to hijack the vote of Ekiti people. That's my contribution, please.
Thank you very much, Nasiru. It's good to hear from you. But then let us look at it this way. What do you think the military could have done to overturn the results? What we were expecting was that people were going to stay back at their homes, but you know, the reverse is the case. Everyone
or even
came
stop
out.
People from voting.
They didn't stop people. Are they going to? Do you think the military are going to rig for a particular party or what?
We will wait, you know, to see that happen. You know, which was why I said the voting, the counting, and the declaration, the collation, the counting, the collation, the declaration are as important as the voting. We should wait, you know, to see if the process will be seamless, you know, all through. It is obvious now so far that the heavy presence of the military, you know, has not had affected the turnout, one, and, you know, the process of voting, you know. But of course, I think Ekiti people should also not despair because the names that have been mentioned, you know, that their presence might cause a bit of, you know, disquiet. Obanikoro, Chris Uba, and you begin to wonder. These are, you know, people who are supposed to be so powerful in their own states, but have lost elections, not once, not twice, you know. So outside of the federal
So you
might,
wonder what
precisely are they able to rot, you know, in Ekiti State?
But then
they
don't forget that they have the military might.
Except for that, but then we have also analyzed here to say that what precisely would the military do? To snatch ballots or to thumbprint? If you thumbprint and you thumbprint more than the figure that is expected, that already means that you are setting the stage for a massive, you know, discredit when the thing gets to tribunal or gets to the court. But even at that, let us wait and see how the voting will go.
Let's look at the unity that we've experienced thus far. Most of our calls have been from northern Nigeria, Adamawa, Abuja, and the Nigerians are keen about finding out what's happening in a southwest state, Ekiti. For many who think that, we had a guest earlier today who said Nigeria might divide. Don't you think that we seem to be more united than... Okay, I think we have a caller now. It's Usman. Hello, Usman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Usman. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome on Call TV News. Please go ahead with your contribution.
I want to find out, this more than quarter of the voters that were not allowed to vote, how long did the INEC give this information to the voters?
I didn't get that, Usman. Can you go over that again?
I say, for how long did INEC give directives that those that did not collect their original voters card will not vote?
Well, I think you are getting it wrong. We got the information yesterday. It's the permanent voter cards, which is trending now. That's what is obtainable for voting in Ekiti. And just yesterday, INEC says that a little over 200,000 voters do not have the permanent card and they won't be allowed to vote. Are you there? Oh, I'm afraid we lost that call.
Democratic setting.
Are you there, Usman?
Thank you, that's my contribution.
Oh, thank you very much for calling. It's good to hear from you all the way from Kaduna. Just like we said, looks as if even northerners are more interested in...
But I think you raised a valid point, though, that INEC should probably use the Ekiti example, you know, to further educate people, you know, as regards Oshun, just like we said earlier, and towards, you know...
the general election.
The general election, so that let people know precisely what they need to do, at what point they need to do it, so that they can... It's not just about registering, it's about also, you know, collecting your permanent voters register.
Okay.
So what he is saying is that let the requirements be publicity around those things that are necessary, so that people won't assume that, oh, since I registered, I'll just go there on that day and go and vote. You know, without proper education, repeatedly, you know.
But one would have expected that the political parties should have taken that challenge.
Absolutely, but INEC shouldn't also shy away, you know, from doing the needful.
Does it not also tell us the importance that political parties actually is putting on the actual votes?
Absolutely.
From the registered voters?
I think there is a general neglect in terms of, you know, and that affects all the political parties in terms of properly educating, you know, their voters. And what you see is that they assume that those who are educated, those who are literate, know what to do. They underestimate the fact that people are busy. Not everybody, they just zero their minds to the fact that, oh, on social date, I'll go there. Forgetting that there are things that you need to do, and the processes have changed.
But Steve, don't you think that if political parties do not see it as their primary responsibility to educate their followers to register, not only to register, to make sure they get the permanent voter cards, does it not tell possibly that they do not really believe in the power of the people?
You get it wrong, because you assume that every voter that votes for a political party, a particular political party, is a member of that political party. No. Barely half of those who vote for parties are members, are card-carrying members of those political parties.
Okay.
You know, generality of Nigerians who vote only align with those political parties. They are not necessarily members. You know, voters card is different from party membership card. And therefore, those who, and you also have to acknowledge that maybe 25% of the voters will not have decided who they will vote for before the election.
We have another call. It's Kola Wale from Elisha. How are you today, Kola Wale?
How are you doing?
I'm terrific. Go ahead with your contribution.
Kola Wale on the line, please.
Go ahead, Kola Wale. We're with you.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to talk about Ekiti.
It's all right.
Hello?
Go ahead, Kola Wale. We can hear you crystal clear. Go ahead with your contributions.
No, thank you. Can I speak now?
Exactly. Please, you can do. Go ahead.
What I wanted to say about Ekiti. Certainly, I'm in English now. But are you listening?
Yes, of course we are. Go ahead. We're with you, Kola Wale. I'm afraid that was a bit of challenge there communicating with Kola Wale. Please do endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set anytime you attempt to reach us. Steve, can we look at this election thus far? It's 5 minutes before 4 o'clock, given the comments and the reports we've had so far. Can we look at this and say that, well, maybe 2015 election is not going to have so much of the opera that many people have talked about, and say that maybe Nigerians and INEC will be getting closer to what we had in 1993, the Abiola election, which many have adjudged to be the fairest, the freest, and the most credible yet. Can 2015 beat that record?
Maybe 2015 will queue behind 1993. I do not for once think that Nigeria will break.
Just a minute, Steve. Hello, Adebayo. Hello, are you there?
Hello?
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Core TV News. Go ahead with the contribution, please.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you. Yes, thank you. I'm a bit worried about the politics, partisan politics going on in Ekiti right now. Number one, we understand that about over 700 voters registered, and as it is, it was only 400 that had a permanent voters card that would be eligible to vote. I can't still understand why that should occur, at this period, when we know that over 700 registered and you are allowing just 400 to vote. To me, it doesn't speak well. And before this election, I understand about just this week that some chieftains from Ekiti were trying to enter that state, and they did not allow them to enter. Why some other political dons from PDP were allowed to enter the state. And apart from that, the Minister for State, I don't want to mention name now, I think the PDP were using him right now, to move around the southwest. As I don't know the purpose of his intention. We are talking of Chibok and all that. Nobody is going there to even seek for the coming back of our schoolgirls. But instead, they were moving around the whole country, thinking that the politics or what should even have the intention of giving back to the people. I understand about before now that the started sharing rights and all that. That will not solve our problem in this country. What we're supposed to face, we are not facing them. We are living what we are supposed to deal with. And we're thinking of partisan politics. I don't know where we are leading to. And I want to say categorically that the outcome of this election in Ekiti and Osun State will dictate the tools of general elections. And to my understanding, the ruling party is not doing anything about that. What they are concerned about is still the presidency. And that's why they are worried about what is happening in Ekiti. I hope God will save us from this, and Nigeria will be good for better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adebayo, for your contribution. Good to hear from you. But I think one thing is said that really struck me was we have the Minister of State of Defense going around at Ekiti. I can't recall
and
that
he has not visited Chibok.
I can't recall that he's been to Chibok.
No, like the president that he serves, he hasn't been to Borno, let alone to Chibok. I think that's instructive. Why is politics more important than good governance? Than saving lives, than being seen to be responsible. But again, we are Nigerians. Sometimes we get our priorities wrong, unfortunately.
Some have questioned the idea of placing such ministry, under a political leadership. But then, I mean, how can we differentiate military from partisan politics subsequently in our future as a country?
Well, I mean, there was a major development at a point, just immediately after the appointment of the substantive Minister of Defense and the Minister of State, that the high echelon of the military actually refused to take instructions, from the minister, saying that I won't be ordered around by this bloody civilian, and the minister almost resigned and everything. That was quelled, the president intervened, but of course that is instructive. That gives an indication into the kind of politics and subterfuge that is probably happening there. So how do we correct that? Good leaders, good governance, responsible leadership, and in a civilian society, the military will acknowledge, they will recognize that, they will take instructions. But of course, it's the quality of people they are taking instructions from, that matters.
Just a minute, Steve. We have our correspondent, Abiola. Hello, Abiola. Can you hear me?
Hello, Minister.
Where are you now, Abiola?
I'm still in local government.
Okay, what's the situation report for us?
Okay, I stepped out now with my cameraman to go and monitor the counting process of votes that has been cast.
Okay.
On our way out, the security personnel on the road, specifically military mobile policemen, ordered our vehicle to stop, which we did. We now highlighted from the vehicle to go and explain to them that we are on our way to counting to the polling unit.
Okay.
We called the counting of votes.
Okay.
They told us that there is an order from the above that no vehicle should move from now till 5 p.m. We told them that we can park our vehicle and we will trek to the point of counting, to any of the polling units where the counting is taking place right now. They told us that no, that we should go and marry our vehicle. That is the situation now.
So you are not allowed to move around in Inying?
Yes, now.
But where you are right now, what's the situation with the counting?
I've not been able to get to any of the polling units to see what is going on, because I was under issue. I was somewhere. I wanted to move to where the polling unit is, but they stopped us on the way. They're saying that there is an order from the above that no vehicle should move for now.
Even though
we ordered our driver to park, that we trek. I was trekking with my cameraman, so they still prevented us from moving.
which of the security agencies stopped you? Was it the police, the military?
Mobile policemen.
They saw your tag, and irrespective of your tag, they said that no one is allowed to move.
They saw our tag, they saw our ID card, they saw our microphone. Even they stopped those people from the AIT crew. Another crew here, they stopped us.
It's all right, Biola. Keep us posted as issues arise.
Okay, I will keep you posted as the event unfolds.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear from you.
Welcome. Yeah.
You heard that earlier. It was a journalist that was whisked away. Now there is an obstruction in mobility for pressmen. Isn't that an infringement on?
Absolutely so. I mean, that's rather unfortunate. And as I indicated earlier, we are getting closer to the period that will be very trying. Now they do not want journalists to move at a time that ballot boxes, and collated votes will be moving from their various destinations to Ekiti. What might happen along the line before you know, the votes get to Ekiti, nobody knows. If you do not have journalists monitoring, you know, in addition to security people, observers, accredited observers, and recognized party agents, you are opening up your flags. You are leaving things to speculation, which is not very good. So you see, it is not just about, you know, queuing up quietly, casting your vote alone. No, it's about the processes. Every process at one point or the other leading to the collation and the announcement, you know, that will be considered before you can say that the election is credible. Now, suspicious flags will be up now. Why are you denying journalists from moving? If they could cover the voting, why can't they move, you know, with the ballot boxes to the destination? Why can't they comb the area around? Why can't they be media observers, really? I mean, those are the questions that are germane.
Well, the good thing is there are party agents in all the polling units, and that way political parties should be able to monitor the number of votes that they have. From history,
you know that it will get to a point that some party agents will complain of either being attacked or being denied proper access. Those are the things, and you know, those are the things that will work either in favor of a particular party or against a particular party if this thing has to get to the tribunal, you know. And I suspect that if things do not gel, you know, completely at the end of the day, you know, we might either end up in tribunal or end up with a rerun or something like that.
Would you say that this is another major disadvantage of having a militarized election in Ekiti?
Not on its own. If the heavy presence of the military is there, just to ensure that there is no violence, but not to interfere, it would be deemed as interference if you have to pick up a journalist and send him, you know, to Oshun, you know, to say that we don't need you here. Or you have to say no AIT, no Core TV, no channels, don't move from point A to B. I mean, what damage can they cause? What havoc can a media crew, you know, press crew, you know, I mean, allow them? It will be a plus to the system, you know, if the process is seen to be, you know, to be open, you know, and transparent. But these, maybe it's just one area. Let us wait and see whether there will be a confirmation, you know, of such untoward, you know, blacklisting, as I would say, of the media from moving around.
Well, we just got a call from our correspondent in Ishon, who actually said, Abiola, who said that they could not move from one point to the other because there is a standing order that between now and 5 o'clock, all movements should be stopped. Now, the big question is, how does this impact on the results from this election? Of course, earlier we told you about the relative peace that we've experienced, and it looks as if things are it looks as if things are taking a whole different dimension. But then, how would you describe the intention on the part of leadership to have a credible election? Because many have asked, what then is the answer to our problems? Is it that we have a leadership that we deserve as a people, or we need someone who is not a product of this community, who will come here without any... Okay, I understand we have a call now. Usman, hello? Usman is trying to reach us again from Adamawa. Hello, Usman, can you hear me? Oh, I'm afraid that there's something wrong with that communication line. Keep trying. Please, when you call in, endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set so we can hear you clearly and have a crystal clear communication going on. Steve, many have, you know, talked about how to bring about a change, you know, what they call the electoral reforms in Nigeria. What exactly is the factor that will bring that change? Is it a man, a structure, a system? What it is?
A combination of both, of all these things. Recall that the first thing, apart from being a shoeless man from a riverine area, you know, that distinguished Jonathan was his insistence on his intention to bring about electoral reforms, you know, and part of what they counted in his favor was the fact that the elections that came, you know, after he became president, you know, almost all went to opposition party, and they attributed that to the fact that you can see that the president didn't interfere.
Okay.
In Anambra, opposition won. In here, you know, opposition won. Stuff like that. But all of a sudden, you know, since the build-up to 2015, you know, started, all of a sudden, electoral reforms, credible elections, and allowing the process to go without interference is no longer part of what the president used to be celebrated for. It's no longer part of what he, you know, seems to be concerned about.
Just a minute, Steve. We have comments coming on our Facebook page, and this is from Adebisi Olanikbekun from Ekiti. When it comes to election participation, our military and police are so excited because it's an avenue to make money and oppress innocent and unarmed citizens. But tell them to go to Bono and they start collapsing. Now, you recall that there was a major outcry and protest by a part of the Nigerian police when they were posted to that part of the country. And then I'm sure that what he's saying is that police or other security agents they'll be happy to go for election rather than fight terrorism headlong. But how does our faith in security agencies in Nigeria, you know, affect all of this? For instance, if you were to be in a more civilized nation and you see the army, for instance, the U.S. Army, there's this respect, this mutual respect between the army and the citizens. You know, they seem to enjoy their company and say, wow, you're doing well. But we don't seem to have that here.
Without having to announce that the policeman is your friend, because a policeman, like any military officer, you know, in a civilized nation, is seen first and foremost as a gentleman. You know, they'll say an officer and a gentleman. You know, a policeman, even if you are being led to the gallows, you know, so to speak, the sa.
But in the local parlance, they said that if an army slaps you, then you know that the police is a friend. We have another one coming from Bright Omogene in Ekiti. I don't know what people really want. Nigeria have security challenges at hand, and political parties blame each other about it. Now, election is to take place. Government provided enough security to protect the citizens. Yet, some group have bad comments about a good step in the right situation. I believe you went in the right direction. Well, it looks as if Nigerians are divided on this particular issue. Many believe that, well, it is good, but then reports that we are hearing recently about not allowing members of the press to move about, of course, tells us, well, something is wrong somewhere with this militarization of the thing. But what are your thoughts along that line?
I mean, that's...
Okay, we have a call now. Owolabi from Ibadan. Hello, Owolabi.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
What the other man said, Mr. Oladipo from Ado. Let this our security men. Let our security men go to the hideout of the Boko Haram to go and solve the problem rather than bringing them to go come around innocent citizens that want to vote their government in. I think they should face the Boko Haram issue. That's what is more important than the voting something here.
It's all right. Thank you very much for your contribution, Owolabi. You know, the former NAFDAC boss of blessed memory, when he was the Minister of Information, kickstarted this idea of rebranding Nigeria. And I think that the thoughts of an average Nigeria as regards the average policeman or the average Nigerian army, you know, it is not really something worthy of note. Nigerians practically do not respect security agencies. What do you think have they done in that light?
I don't think it's disrespect. I don't think that's the right word. I think it is trust. you know, that is the right word. Nigerians don't, generality of Nigerians do not trust the security, you know, agencies, because over time there have been, you know, incidences of letting people down. You know, we know of cases where, you know, armed robbers or suspects will be arrested and will be released, you know, because policemen will have been alleged to have collected, you know, some bribe. And you know what happens when, you know, an armed robber returns and he knows those who reported him. The first place to visit will be, you know, that place. So therefore, people are guarded. So when you say, if you see anything untoward, if you sense anything in your area, call the police, do this, and you know the process. Even the mere case of assisting, being a good Samaritan to assist somebody in dire need, you know, of health issues, and you carry that person to the hospital or something, and the people will say you need police clearance to say that, you know, that you are not the one that actually shot him or hit him with a car.
Well, we have a call from Kule. Kule is calling from in Ekiti. How are you today, Kule?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead with your contribution, Kule.
Yes, this is only calling from me. Hello?
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, the voting process has been so good, and I can see that some people are criticizing the police and the security men on ground. I want you to know that the police and the security men on ground, if they are not available, the whole situation will have turned to another thing. I remember in 1999, I was in my hometown. I'm from Iyi. The politicians are the one causing all this problem. They want to win at all costs. And since the security people on ground, it is not possible for them now coming with money to buy the conscience of people. So I think the presence of security men is good. So all those calling that it's not good, it's not this, it's not that. The only thing is that people that are not supposed to be in Ekiti, like that of the Minister of State, they have not been in Ekiti for now.
Hello, Kule.
What I want to say now is for people to be criticizing the police being on ground, I don't think we have developed to a state that there won't be any security at the polling booth. Many of us, we don't have that kind of patience and everything. When things go wrong, we try to fight each other. And the presence of security has really helped a lot of things. Like in my work, the whole thing has been so smooth. And they are from press, like Ekiti. They show them. I don't even know where your people said they detain them. And from me, if the guy can call, so that if you can work there and we talk to them, so that they release them.
No, they were not detained, though. They just were not allowed to move around.
You can hear Mr. Gondo. He was saying that he gave kudos to the INEC, that they have done better than what they did in Anambra. That in his own time, it has been peaceful. He even joined the queue, just to know that, for you to know that everybody is interested in voting. And in Ekiti, I call my people there. They said the security has not harassed anybody going to vote. And people went to the voting booth and they casted their votes. And I believe this time around, the votes will count. But the only problem we have now is our politicians. They want to get there by all means. Imagine the two ruling parties sharing rights up and down. Is it that what we need now? The so-called APC and PDP? No.
It's
but I think our politicians are the one causing problems.
Hello, Kule. Where you are right now, are you still at the polling units now?
Our politician is the problem. I pray God will help us in Nigeria.
It's all right. Thank you for calling. I'm afraid he could not hear me. Well, he said that he doesn't think that we are ripe enough as a nation to have an election without such military paparazzi, so to speak.
He might be right. He might be right in labeling us as crude and uncivilized. You know, maybe that is what obtains. My position is that even if that were true, to be true, what should be the standard? How many policemen were deployed to Anambra, for example? What is the population of Anambra compared to Ekiti? What will be the population of Ekiti compared to Osun? And what will be the number of voters in Ekiti compared to Osun? It shouldn't be arbitrary. You shouldn't just say because we need Ekiti desperately, therefore 12,500 policemen should go, 15,000 civil defense should go, you know, blah blah. No, it shouldn't be that way, because as we said earlier, when it gets to the federal and you do not have the luxury of sending police, you know, everywhere, you will have to deal with the little that you have.
We have another Facebook message from Benga Koliosho from Ekiti. Ekiti has survived the doomsday many predicted. The determination of the people to toe the path of peace has prevailed. Let no one claim the soldiers quelled violence. If Ekiti people wanted to fight, they will. Don't forget the Agbekoya saga. Warn them that they should not give our votes to someone else. Otherwise, now you see the ... there. Otherwise, Benga is saying, irrespective of all the military might in Ekiti, you cannot stop the people from doing what they desire to do. But then he made a big point there that Ekiti people are peaceful people and they are determined to remain peaceful. Now, how does that ripple, you know, across the nation come 2015?
Well, the ellipsis there is actually very pregnant. The ... You know, that...
There's a condition.
You know, that we are peaceful, we will remain peaceful if we are not provoked and if it doesn't appear as if we are cheated.
If you don't give our votes to someone else.
You know, to someone else, you know. I think that warning, I won't see it as a subtle threat. I'll see it as a warning that do it right so that things can turn out right. And I would think that that gentleman is also speaking the minds of, you know, the entire nation. Don't forget that for the election in 2015, the expectations will be evenly distributed. There are those states that you consider to be major states, major voting states, major political and economic states, like Lagos, like Rivers, like Kano, like Sokoto, like Borno, that are with the opposition. Desperation, therefore, will be dangerous if 5 key states in the country are in the opposition and the will of the people, at least for their own states. You know, their own desire to might not be the desire of the entire country, but at least.
But on the contrary, the last election that we had in 2011, we saw the PDP winning the presidential election, even in opposition parties. We'll be back to that. Lemo from Akure, hello. Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm Wale. I am calling from Akure.
All right, go ahead, Lemo.
I want to say that the security presence in Ekiti has prevented a lot of violence. We all know, and you agree with me, that the process building up to this election was particularly with a lot of fear. People were, I mean, we already had the life that was lost in the contest, I mean, the campaigning
process. Are you there? Hello, Lemo. Oh, I'm afraid we lost that call. Please do try to call us. Let us quickly intimate you with our social feeds in case you want to be a part of the show. Of course, the number to call will be on your screen to do that. But you can also reach us on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/CoTV News. Exactly, and you can put your comments there. We'll be reading it live, as well as on Twitter. It's at CoTV News NG, and YouTube. It's streaming live on YouTube. It's youtube.com/CoTV News. I understand that you can also watch us live. All you need to do is go to our website. It's www.CoTVNews, possibly /live TV, and you'll be able to watch us live on YouTube and get all the news as it break, as well as in-depth analyses of facts, figures, and stories that are emerging from Ekiti. Well, I'm still joined by Steve. Thank you very much for staying the course on the show today. Now, let's push this ahead. We're talking about a ripple effect across the country in 2015. But then, what do you think what do you think leadership must be cognizant of as we speak now? Because we say a relative peace so that we can sustain it. You heard him say, don't give our vote to someone else. What else? Or else. Of course, we understand that the INEC boss himself is there. What do you think is expected from INEC and other stakeholders at this very critical time?
I think on the part of INEC, I think the pass mark that is being awarded to them so far is not misguided, it's not misdirected, you know, because the whole point of INEC is to provide, you know, an enabling electoral environment, make the process transparent, effective, start on time, let every vote count, explain, you know, the processes, etc. And then, you know, from available data, declare the results as they come, as they are available to you. That will be the whole point, you know, of INEC, you know, in addition to voter awareness, you know, proper registration, you know, and communicating effectively. I listened to Kaude Idowu, the Chief Press Secretary to JEGA this morning, you know, again, going through, you know, the processing and explaining. You can't be tired of engaging, you know, your public, your audiences, etc. And I think INEC, you know, is trying, you know, in those areas. The other area would be what is expected, you know, of our leaders on the one hand and of the political parties themselves, you know, on the other hand. Not to, of course, forget the fact that as an electorate, you know, be aware of your rights, be aware of what is required of you before you start, you know, crying foul, you know, be aware that certain things are required. You need to register at a particular point. You need to go back and, you know, validate, verify it, and collect your, you know, all those things are time bound. You can't miss your flight and then blame, you know, the airline because there's a time that you're supposed to check in, that you're supposed to, you know, board, etc. It is the same thing in the electoral process. You have to be aware of those rights. But then at the end of everything, the whole point rests with the leadership of the day, the federal government, because you are dealing with issues of security, you are dealing with issues, you know, of making sure that elections are not rigged. So at the end of the day, what you count is, for free, fair, and credible election, is to allow the voice of the voter to be the determinant, the deciding factor.
Well, as we begin to round up now, I also want us to touch on what we begin to look at the possibility of accepting defeat in an election, because we already established it's not a do or die affair. Unlike other states where you see a party lead overwhelmingly, the last election in Ekiti, there wasn't much of a difference, maybe some 3,000 difference, you know, some 10,000 difference in the total vote cast. How do you think this little difference will impact on the possibility of other candidates accepting defeat, which of course has not been a culture in Nigeria?
If the playing ground is level, if there are no confirmed evidences of...
Oh, we have a call, Steve, just a minute. Hello, Sadiq.
Hello?
Welcome, Sadiq. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Hello, good afternoon.
Go ahead with the contribution, Sadiq.
Yes, first of all, I want to commend the gentleman that is here with you. And gentleman that is here with you. And first of all, I want people to understand that the electoral issue in Nigeria is beyond data. And that data is not everywhere. If you want to get it right, until the politicians actually bring their attitude, so that everything will go smoothly for us. And I don't know why in one state election, we are sending many troops of soldiers, police, and what have you, as well as this island commissioner. So we are going to have elections generally. So what is going to happen? So elections are supposed to be something that people should have a free mind to go and do it, thinking that they are going to choose the person that is going to be right to lead them. But as it is in Nigeria today, it is not like that, because what you choose is not what you are going to see. Except if Nigeria got the electorate are ready to protect their votes, as the gentleman said, not by violence and what have you, by standing there and make sure that your vote is counted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sadiq, all the way from Kaduna. It's good to hear from you. Just let's round the segment up like this. How do you think? Of course, we talked about the possibility of people accepting defeat in elections like this, but put all of that together as we begin to count down to who among the 18 contenders will emerge as the winner. What exactly do you think must be done at this time, especially among the big players? We already talked about INEC, but the contenders, what attitude should we get from them at this time?
Well, a large heart, you know, spirit of sportsmanship, you know, responsibility, you know, and to think more of Ekiti and its development and the people therein, rather than selfish interest, you know. If, as I was trying to explain earlier, if there are no major issues of violence, you know, of ballot snatching, of harassment, etc., of deliberate disenfranchisement, I think at least, you know, the three of the leading contenders will most probably, you know, accept, you know, the result if all these indices appear, you know, to be very correct. I think that the election would turn out almost like what we had in Ondo last time. You know, the difference will not be. Are
you suggesting a return of the incumbents?
No. I'm trying to talk about, you know, how the votes, you know, came in terms of number. I do not know who will win. I hope that whoever wins will win fairly. You know. But as I said, it's between two people. Let's see how it goes.
Thank you very much. My guest on the show today has been Steve Ayoride, as we begin to give you in-depth analysis of what is transpiring in Ekiti. It's the D-Day, the 24th day of June 2014. Historic for Nigerian, is historic for Ekiti people as they make that choice again of who leads them as the governor in the next 4 years. It is important for all of us as Nigerians because it's our 15 years of uninterrupted democracy, a government of the people, for the people, and now again, we are showing that it will be by the people. Countdown, elections already rounded up in most areas that we got information from, and as a matter of fact, counting has started just like we had earlier from some of our correspondents on the field. We'll be back shortly after this break with more. Don't go away. It's an 8-hour broadcast dedicated to keep you up to date with what's happening in Ekiti. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Stay with us.
Come June 21, it will be decision day for the people of Ekiti. 18 candidates are gunning for one seat.
I am the next governor of Ekiti.
But the people will have the final say.
I know that tolerance has a very big place.
Join extensive coverage of the election and get up to the many details as development unfolds.
I'm the voice of the Ekiti people.
With expert analysis from the best political team on television.
And that's honesty of island.
Join us all day June 21 to find out who emerges the next governor of Ekiti State.
We have agreed to move this state forward.
Keep a date with us on Core TV News. You can also watch us live on our website on www.coretvnews.com, a 24-hour news station.